Welcome, everybody, to the fourth session of our eMemoir creation project. If we recall the first three sessions, we found out why it was important to create eMemoirs. It was important because people wanted to be remembered. And this is a preferred a way of delivering messages today. This is through the internet and with websites. However, we can also do it with local distribution, and we'll discuss that at the end. That's part 4 today, is the distribution of our websites. So then we looked into how do we find our stories, and there were various ways, but if you go on the internet, you'll find that the same problem comes up with regular memoir, and there were all kinds of suggestions there. My suggestion was to use the spiral notebook, and I'm hoping that it worked out well for everyone. Then how do you tell your story? Well, since we're dealing with electronic and digital media, it would be a multimedia presentation. And how do we add images, sound, and video and so forth to the story? Well, that's the technology that we discussed. Then how do we edit and improve our story? Well, this is an art form, and it's something that you develop a feel for and improve on as you practice and get experience doing it. It's the way we're talking about doing it would be usable on older computers, and the use of a video editor. And there are various, numerous, I should say, video editors that are available. Many are free and some are on a subscription basis. Some are on your computer. You can go online and have them that are online. So there are a number of options there. It's up to you and how you want to proceed. Then how do you record your story? Well, we can do it locally. By putting it on DVDs, CDs, flash drives, thumb drives, any physical type of storage device that would work into our computer system. We deal with 3 basic different formats, HTML, which is the language for using browsers, and which is used on the internet. JPEG, which would be for the still images that we would be incorporating, and then MP4, which is the video file format. So those were things that we learned about. So today we're down to how do we distribute and archive our websites? Well, the first thing you've got to remember is you've got to get a landing place. So the format that's used is a HTML, and the file name is index. This is a special type of file. It's the one when you go onto a internet site that pops up. When you do it locally, it's something that the person who is using your physical storage material would have to type in at the bottom of the page. But once you get up into HTML, then everything is handled from that point on by links. And of course, we talked a lot about links and how to create links and how to use them. Another important thing about local is distribution. Now, as I've already mentioned, this could be on CD, DVD, thumb drive, flash drive. But when you choose this device, choose this method, first of all, it's the basis for an online. So you do offline first, and then test everything to make sure your links are working and the type of information you have on your web pages is correct, and do all that editing ahead of time on a local basis. And then when you're satisfied you have what you wanted, it can be uploaded to various web hosting services, and we're going to be discussing that a little bit later on here. So we've got index HTML that tells the computer that this is going to require being played in a browser. And that's the way you go, even locally. When you go to load that file, it brings up whatever browser you've instructed the computer to use. Also, if it's online, again, it's going to be the browser. We need to also consider now, since we've got this material recorded on physical devices, how do we protect those devices in the case of a fire or flood or some type of disaster? Well, the best way to do it is to create multiple copies and distribute copies without friends, relatives, family members, and so forth, so that you've got them in various locations. So if there's some type of disaster, you've got other recorded materials that can be copied and brought back and given the original site a copy. Now, this is one of the other advantages of using the approach that we're talking about here, which is a website, and that is the low cost. DVDs today are in the order of 10 to 20 cents a piece. And I'm talking about the kind that you can print on. You can have printers that will print your label directly onto the DVD and make a good looking presentation. So the question then becomes, what is it that you're going to include on your website? And who is it for? These are things that you need to consider. For example, would you wish to have your information on the internet where anybody could look at it? There are some cases where you can make exclusive uses of security and allow only certain people to do it with a code. But again, you need to consider, do you want this that's something you can hold in your hand and that other people can't see, that you can give the physical thing to some other relative or whatever, and they can use it, but nobody else can? Or is the information that you've got such that you really want to share it with the world? In which case, we'll talk about going online with your information. So let's take a look at going online, and I'm going to share a website, and this is GoDaddy.com. And the reason that I'm going here first is if you're going to do anything online, you have to have a domain. This is the address for the website that you're producing. So let's go in here and say that we would like to, or Herb would like to have a website that's called Herb's Site. And let's make that a .com. And we'll go and look for it. Okay, it's available, Herb. It's only $1 a month. This would be terrific. It'd be a terrific thing. But let's go back and look at another one. Let's say he wanted to make this Herb's Site, or Herb's Life. Herbs.life. Now these editions that you've got here vary. And of course, the price is going to vary because if it's a .com, it's usually used by business, and therefore, and they're very limited, they're competitive, and the price for them is high. Herb's Life has been taken, but if you want to buy it, somebody's parking that with the idea that they're going to sell it. So for about $120, you could buy it, Herb. Now, another thing, Herb career was in education. He was a mathematic professor. So education has its own subscript, edu, but that's not available. It's already been taken up by somebody else. But they give you other suggestions here that you might want to use. But we had Herb's Life, which was even pretty cheap. So you can see what these would be now. Herb's Global. I guess this would be not the herb that we're not talking about. This would be the type of herb that you grow in your garden. But again, look at how expensive that can be. And that would be, I think, for 1 year. Yeah. Oh, no, it's $100 a year. So that's the first thing you need to do is you need to get your domain, which is also sometimes referred to as your URL. And then you can have GoDaddy be your service provider. So I'm going to stop sharing this now. And we're back to me. So other places that you can store your material online are familiar names like Google Drive. Again, you can do it there. Basically, it's free. And then you have Microsoft. You can put it there. There is a charge, but it's very minimal, like cents per day, cents per month. Similarly, you have Amazon Web Services. So I am going to go back and do some sharing, and let's see if we can get into a good place here. Okay, now we're in YouTube, and I'm going to search for, incidentally, today, Reed did upload eMemoir session 3. I got it to him a few days ago. This is one that we had a lot of difficulty with because I tried to record while the main recording from the senior center was being done, and the computer crashed, and we had a rough time recovering from that. So, but I think you're going to find the information that needed to be covered is going to be covered in this session 3. But I'm going to search up here for free web hosting. Now, what I like to do here is I look at the time. That's a 5-minute one. That's a 4.5. Well, it's almost 5 minutes also. Here's one over here that's only 3 minutes. But that gives me an idea as to how complex and how complicated the site is. So I'm going to do this one. Now this is going through the steps. And it was, this one here was a 4 minute and 59 seconds. So basically in 5 minutes, this is telling you how you can set up a free hosting service on OneDrive. Now, OneDrive is Microsoft. And something to consider here is how do these various companies deal with your information? From what I can tell, the one that probably has the least commercial influence in using your data is Microsoft. And OneDrive would be, if you're concerned about that one, OneDrive would be one possible location to look. And when they say free, they're really talking about a couple cents a month. So you are you're going to be concerned about long archival. So how are you going to pay, let's say 50 years from now, how are you going to pay Microsoft to continue hosting your service? Well, the only thing that I can think of is that you could set up an automatic payment system with your credit card, with the idea that your credit card will probably be around 50 years from now, and that that the interest earned on your credit card would be equal to the payment that you'd have every month for the use of the service. But again, I haven't tried that. That's something that that I'm still concerned about. You know, how do we ensure that the website's going to be available in a long time in the future? Because I think that's what some of us want to do. But if it's not an issue, and if you're going to be doing it locally, then the question is how permanent and what are the archival qualities of the DVD or CD or the thumb drive that you're storing your information on. So let's go over here and look at a special DVD. And this is called an M disk. Okay, it is the same size as the regular DVD, but as you can see here, they're talking about 1,000 years of data storage. This is what the federal government is using. And let's see, how long is this one? That's about an 8-minute. Let's take a look at that and learn a little bit more. Now, these are a little more expensive than the regular DVDs. You're probably talking about $2 a disc. That would be a printable disc, one you could print the label on if you had that type of printer. I've got the audio turned off here, but you know, it comes in 10 packs and so forth. And of course, the more you buy in a package, the less the per unit cost becomes. But let's go over here and just see what it says out here. Okay, now the type of drive. They'll play on any drive that you have. Any drive that'll play a DVD will play these. But it needs a special kind of drive to write to them, to create the information on the disk. And the one is the LG is the one that's normally recommended. It has a different burning technique, so it works on this ceramic coating that's on the M disk, and but they're not expensive. You know, I bought one, an external that plugs into my laptop with a USB for, I think it was about $25. So you can be in business now. They also have the M disk also has one for Blu-ray, and that has a capacity of about 25 gigabyte, as compared with the 4.7 gigabytes that you have on the normal DVD. So again, but again, that would require somebody to have a Blu-ray player to make it usable. So these are all issues to be concerned about. Again, getting back to the standard DVD or even the M-Disc standard size, a benefit of the web page format for storing information is that it's modular. So you can have maybe, let's say, 2-3 disks that are all connected through software, but they have to be on the same drive to work. Now, if you go back to the very beginning of our tutorials here, we talked about the organization of data, and it all started out with a drive. Remember, we talked that could be your hard drive on your computer. It could be an external hard drive. It could be a DVD. Anything that it could be a thumb drive. You know, anything that stores information can be called a drive, and you could have multiple drives, let's say of 4.7 gigabyte storage, put on one drive, let's say a hard drive. Now, if you to put 3 of them on there, 15 gigabytes, that's not much for a hard drive, even if it's a solid state hard drive on your computer. But then the software can interconnect through linkages, through the same kind of linkage that we discussed. However, you'd have to have it in the same, all 3 of these would have to be in the same folder. And, or I should say, maybe even the same drive, which is the root of your folders. And that would be a very inexpensive way of archiving a larger website. Okay, are there any questions at this point? Wow. Well, yes.
You mentioned the YouTube. If we just wanted to create a short, 10, 15 minute YouTube, where we describe some of our life story or something like that, so they'd get a chance to see us as opposed to just having written words and photographs, we could do that. I mean, is it very expensive to create your own YouTube? Seems like it must be easy. There's so many out there.
Well, and another one is your Zoom. I mean, we're doing that right now. You can go on when no one else is involved and create a new meeting, and it would be just you speaking to your computer, and then you can record that. And once you stop the recording and get out of the meeting, Zoom automatically downloads that information to your computer, to your C drive, and there's an MP4 file. And that's what'll happen with the recording you're doing right now, Herb. When we get done and you stop the meeting and you get off the meeting, Zoom takes over, and it creates a new file, MP4 file, and stores that on the computer. And those are the files that Reed has been forwarding to me, and then I in turn would put those into a editing system, video editing system, and take out anything that needs to be taken out, and then I upload that final MP4. It's still MP4 from coming out of the video editor up to OneDrive, and then give Reed access to that file. Reed then brings that file to his computer, and then in turn he uploads that to YouTube, which kind of gets back to what you're talking about. But that's a kind of a roundabout way of doing it. What you're talking about, you could do. Yeah, you could also do it.
Yeah.
To any of the services, and if it becomes big, if it's a big file, for example, something that's gone on for an hour like we have, then usually you want to get into one of the online storage systems. Any other? I think, Mary, you had a question.
So how big?
Mary?
Oh, I just wanted to know, with GoDaddy, is there a yearly charge for the name?
I couldn't understand what you said. What was it?
GoDaddy, when you register a name.
Yes.
Is there a yearly fee on that, or is that just a one-time fee?
Well, you renew it. Okay.
How do you renew it when you're dead?
I beg your pardon?
How do you renew it when you're dead?
Well, you don't. Yeah, you don't. That's what I'm talking about. That would be the service, or one of the services that you'd have to set up either somebody to keep doing it for you, or get some kind of system through your credit card that would pay for it. Now that low fee that you saw around $2, you know, those are like one first year. They kind of get you after that. Now in my case, I've got about I think 5 different URLs, and they vary in cost per year to keep them registered. You know, between $10 and $20 each. Again, depending upon what the suffix is on the description of the site. So there's really 2 things. If you're going to store in one of the services, there's 2 expenses that have to be maintained. The one that you just mentioned, and the other one. Now, GoDaddy is not the only place to register your URL, your domain. There are other services that really are less expensive than GoDaddy. The reason I've been dealing with GoDaddy is that their customer support is so great. They're really a fantastic company with regard to customer support. Okay, Herb, I think you had another one.
I was just wondering how big is, for example, the hour-and-a-half classes we have. How many megabytes or gigabytes does that take when you record that?
Well, each one has been about half a gigabyte. And that's
Okay, thank you.
That's using the high resolution and 30 frames per second MP4. Now, again, going back to the video editor that I discussed at the last session, when you render, or when you complete your editing process, you have to render the file. And that means that the computer takes over and looks at all of the different things that are in there and gets the right code to do what you want it to have done. And when you do that, you can go to a smaller format. And this is something that I mentioned in regard to one of the questions you had before, which was, okay, I do a video on my phone, and that comes up as high resolution, and I really want to store it as a standard definition to save space. So again, even though it comes into the video editor as high definition, when you render it and output it, or I should say export it, you can have it come out as a standard definition, which in this case, I did do one of those sessions as a 4:3 format, standard definition. And it was probably around 25, 26 gig, or say a quarter of a gigabyte. Does that answer it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you create your story with all the links and so forth on your computer or a separate hard drive and then download that onto one of those M disks?
Oh yeah, that's the whole objective. That's the whole objective. Now,
Yeah, instead of putting it onto a website, you would be able to have a disk that you could give to people.
yes. Now, as I just mentioned, if you're going to put it on an M disk, though, you're going to have to make sure you got like an LG disk drive on there to burn them, because the M disk does require a little different technique in burning, even though what you end up with, the disk that you end up with is a standard playable disk. You'd have to have that, or have someone who has that type of disk do it for you. Otherwise you can do the regular disks and maybe do what the big guys do. You ever wonder how do these services that store data maintain the archival qualities? Well, periodically what they do is they download the content from one source and put it on another new source. So let's say the source, as I refer to it, has a shelf life of 10 years. So you're using up, let's say, 8 years of that first 10. You download it and then reload it to the other source, and you start out with at ground zero again. You got another 10 years before you really need to be, maybe another 8 years before you need to be concerned about it. So that's another way of doing this, is to periodically transfer your information from one physical disk to another physical disk, or one physical source to another physical source.
Thank you.
But again, it's going to require that somebody is around at that point in time to do it. Herb.
So I have a question about how, predicting the future. How's it going to be now in 20, 40, 50 years? Are people still going to be using flash drives? Are they still going to be using M disks? We don't really know what the future is.
Well,
and
I think the only way,
my older computers, they use a completely different kind of disk.
Yeah, well, I think the only way that you can address that question is by looking at the history. As you recall, we talked about using analog VHS tapes. Now, VHS tapes are not being used anymore, but there was and there is very inexpensive equipment that we covered that allows you to transfer that into from an analog to a digital, and now you've got an up-to-date system. So a lot of this stuff is going to be backward compatible, but it's going to require some special effort to get it done. I think the trend that we're seeing now, and you hear this all over the place, is everything's in the cloud, and the services are getting to be very inexpensive, as we mentioned, and that seems to be the direction. But again, once you get your information out there in the cloud, you can bring it down and put it on any kind of device you want. So I'm sure that the people who have the storage business are working very hard to come up with an archival approach. However, again, something to think about is, let's say they put their information on a M disk or M disk type, then that has to be physically downloaded by someone, or physically transported to someone to be usable. So the whole service model would have to change to get that done, and it may happen that way. I don't know.
Maybe printing books or something is the best way for non-computer people to pass it on to the next generation.
Well, that's one of the advantages of a printed memoir. However, storage and archival is probably one of the few benefits of it over eMemoir. No, I don't understand your question.
Well, if I attach a video file and you look at it, do you see the whole video, or do you see just the middle third of many of the ones on the news, which are quickly shoved out there? It doesn't have the full aspect,
Well, you're only going to be able to see what you record. Now, once you get it recorded, you get it in some kind of playing format. You can scan, like right here, we've got this recording up here, and I can go to anywhere. If I wanted to start here, I could start there, as opposed, I don't have to go back to the very beginning. Is that what you were after?
So
Oh,
it's-
okay. We're doing that right now. I mean, if you've got the same screen I've got, I'm here, there's Herb, there's Mary, and we've got other people here. So those are separate little windows that are, in the main screen. So yeah, you can, and that's called window in a window. And if you want to create that effect, that would be done in the video editing software, providing that video editing software would have that feature. Going back to what we were talking about a little while ago about paper, you said, can we get paper to store the data on? I was the first person in the state of Ohio to purchase and own a TRS computer. It was from Radio Shack. And one of the formats was to hook it up to a teletype machine. Now, teletype machines did have at that time paper tapes, and the paper tape would run through this little device on the side, and it would punch holes across the tape. And of course, the series of holes were, maybe an eighth of an inch apart. So you had a lot of holes in even a 1 foot length of tape. And then once you had that, and I still have some of those tapes, I don't have a way to play them anymore. But you had a record, a stored record of what was requested. So that was one of the very early ways of recording information and then being able to play it back. So your question wasn't far off the mark, but it was maybe 50 years 50 years ago.
I used to carry a computer key cards in my trunk when I was programming at Ohio State.
So we would need your permission to do that.
Well, I've got one last thing if you'd like to see it. This is I'm kind of handicapped here. I only have one hand to work with. But this is like 400 pages of this family book. It was like photographs and so on. I'll open it up and show you if you like. Yeah, I think that it's a muting. Is that better?
Yeah, I can see you now.
And you can hear me?
Yep.
Well, anyway, over the last 10 or 15 years of my cousin's life, why he did this book up, and it's exactly what we were talking about here. And I haven't read half of it. It cost about $100 to make a copy of it from the printer. And it's professionally done and bound. And can you unmute this, Noel?
What's that?
I'm having trouble unmuting this.
Oh,
You're okay. We can hear you.
Yeah, but I'm holding down the key. But
Oh, okay.
now you can do it. Now
is
you
that
can.
better?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, if I could get this here, so you can see it a little bit. It's got the standard pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
it's got stuff that isn't perfect.
Very nice.
This is, no, we're manhandling it, but it's just regular typing. And he's got it copied.
I think this is one of his school papers when he got his bachelor's. as
So
a- yeah.
it was $100 per copy.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. Well, the
Right.
most
The-
people today would compare that with 10 cents on a DVD.
Right. Well, the
But-
families over in the eastern side of Oregon, this is what they had.
Yeah.
It had not been scanned. It was just all paper. And then he passed away suddenly. And so they completed it and family members could buy a copy if you
Okay.
wanted. But it was,
Well, archival, of course, are those copies, are those photographs well identified?
Oh, no, not that kind of stuff. Is that too, you're lucky if they know who's in the picture, you
Well,
know?
that's the point I was going to make. You know, we've got a lot of family photographs, and some of them, for example, I know of a couple where there's people that are holding me when I was a baby, and I have no idea who those people are, and there's no one left who can identify those people. So,
Yeah,
Those are easy to toss.
it's a
yeah.
problem. It feels like you should throw
Okay,
stuff
well,
away, but
if you're
you know, what
interested,
do you keep?
excuse me, if you're interested in continuing, you know, send read a message, a little message, and put your email in there. And you know, there are a lot of different topics that need to be covered here or should be covered here. One I would like to do is to get an attorney who's very knowledgeable about the issues that would you need to be concerned about. For example, you never want to use a website and this type of approach to get even with somebody, for example. There's ethical issues that need to be considered here. And there are legal issues with regard to borrowing content, if I can use that term. But that would be the type of thing. And, you know, give maybe somebody from a library system who could give us additional information on how to gather content. Yeah, Mary?
So I've got a question. I have some photos on OneDrive, and I'm trying to put a description on it of who is in the picture, and it doesn't let me do it. Is that because it's not an editing program?
I don't know, Mary. I can't answer your question.
Because you're right. What's good a picture without telling you who's in it?
Well, that's the point. Yeah, that's the point that we're making. So, you know, the whole eMemoir thing is not about getting all of your pictures out there or getting as many of your pictures out there as you can. It's about getting those pictures that are going to support your stories. And of course, when you do that, you have to identify who the people are that are in the picture.
You know, Mary, one of the things that I have done is when I'm like doing a Christmas letter to people or something, I'll insert a picture. And if I want to describe, I put it, usually I use WordPerfect, but I put the picture into Word, and then underneath you're able to write the names of who people are.
Right.
So, but it seems like that's a long process to do, but
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, because with a real picture, you can write on the back at least.
yeah.
well, the other thing you can do is, you know, when you're in a folder that has photographs in it, for example, okay, let me just tell you, in the folder, if you right click if you got an image scanned and it's in there like at a JPEG, you right click on it and it will say change the name. And if you change the name, which gives you the box to do that, then the photograph appears with that underneath it, so that if you print it out, you know, you do have some identification underneath it. And if you have a PC, it's already there. I mean, the software is there to do that. Anything else?
Now, this will be the fourth video or YouTube video. So if we go to the Bainbridge Island, can we pick up all we'll be able to pick up all 4 of the sessions and go through them again?
Well, maybe the best thing to do is, you know, if you send me, and you know what my email is now?
And I don't.
Well, I'm not going to give it out.
Right. Can you?
But Reed has it.
Okay.
And so you can get the email from him, and either he or I can put the 4 links, the YouTube links, in an email back to you. And then all you'd have to do is save that and, click on those links and it would take you to whichever session you want to see.
Okay, I'll do that. I'm interested in continuing sometime because I think there's like you say, there's a lot of other issues, like, having a lawyer talk about some of the legal issues and so forth when you're starting to think about posting on a big website of some sort or something.
Correct. Yeah. No, there's all kinds of things. I mean, we're talking about a very big topic here. I made a mention, I think somewhere in one of the sessions about, when you look at a production, let's say a video production, commercial video production, they've got the credits, they scroll the credits there. You've got many, many people in there who have different skills. And when you do your email, or I'm sorry, when you do your eMemoir, you basically are it. You have to put all these different hats on. And so there's learning to be done probably with every one of those skills. But boy, I'll tell you, it can be real fun to do that. Learning to me is just fantastic fun. And especially when you can get some benefit out of it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
All right. Well,
thing.
thank you, folks. And I'll look forward to seeing some emails.
One more thing, the email from Reed that came for the link for today had a link to the previous 3 sessions in it already.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, and I think I have the second session, I believe. So maybe I'll look and see if there's the first session on YouTube already anyway. So.
Oh, yeah. This will be the 5th session, actually. The first session was where they interviewed me. And we just talked about, the whole overall process. And then we get into, session 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and before being today.
If you look at your email that came with today's link, you'll see a link to and I just checked all 3 since we started the sessions are out there. So,
Okay.
Rich has something to say.
I want to add to it that there is a camera club on Bainbridge that might work well with this because they're dealing with the same issues. And if you had a speaker coming in,
Senior Center.
the senior center too, yeah. If they had we had arranged for a speaker, well, we would certainly want to share with them, that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rich. All right, folks. Well, I'm gonna turn it off.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Have
so much,
a good
Thank you,
week,
everybody.
Have a good weekend. Stay safe and get your shot.
Got 2.
All right. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.